All right, homework 27, we are doing half angle identities. And so you need to know what your half angle identities are. Over here on my notes, I have the half angle identities. Also, if you go to Alex and in the dictionary type in half angle, it will bring up the identities. You can print those out. First one, sine of u over 2 has plus or minus the square root of 1 minus the cosine of u over 2. The plus or minus depends on which quadrant you're in. Sine is positive in quadrant 1 and 2, would be negative in quadrant 3 and 4. Cosine of u over 2 is plus or minus the square root of 1 plus the cosine of u over 2. Again, depending on which quadrant you're in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4, the cosine is positive. And then you have the tangent. You'll notice for the tangent you have 3 different formulas. Shouldn't matter which one you use, you just pick which one you like better. I don't like the one with the square root, so I usually use one of the other 2. But keep that list handy to keep for reference. Other thing you're going to have is your list of what sine, cosine, and tangent of your main angles are, because we're going to use those values and substitute them into our formula. So you'll want to have your sheet of paper that has those angles. Again, I'm just going to put them on my paper because when I flip back and forth between the screens, it erases my board. So keep those 2 pieces of paper handy for reference as we go through these. First one, we are using the half angle formula to find the exact value of the sine of 112.5. First thing we want to do is figure out what quadrant that's in. 112.5 is between 90 and 180. So we know we're in quadrant 2. We know that our sine is going to be positive when we're in quadrant 2. The other thing we would do then is figure out what twice this is so that we can use our double angle formula. So if I take 112.5 times 2 and you multiply that out, you get 225 degrees. So we are going to do the sine of 225 degrees over 2, which is our 112.5. We know it's going to be positive because we're in quadrant 2, and our formula says that we're going to do the square root of 1 minus the cosine of our 225 degrees over 2. And so then we're going to go and look back at our paper for the cosine of 225 degrees. So if you look back at your page, the cosine of 225 is negative square root of 2 over 2. So we are going to substitute in. We're going to have 1 minus negative square root of 2 over 2 over 2. And we have a nice big mess that we're going to go ahead and simplify. So first of all, since I have minus a negative, I can make that a positive. If I go ahead and find my I'm just going to go ahead and multiply by 2. So if I multiply everything by 2, I can get rid of that fraction there. I'm going to have 2, that's going to be plus the square root of 2, and then 2 times 2 is 4. That's all underneath the square root. Since the square root of 4 is a perfect square, I can simplify that. So I'm going to have 2 plus the square root of 2, still under the square root, but then on the bottom, I'm just going to have a plain old 2 since I did the square root of 4. And that's going to be my answer, as simplified as I can do it. So the next one is going to be sort of similar, but this time it's in radian measures instead of degrees, but basically we're going to do the same thing. So I want to find the exact value of 7 pi over 8. So if I think about 7 pi over 8, my board decides to pop my stuff back up here. I want to think about what quadrant that they're in. Again, if you're not real sure, because you're not real familiar with radian measures, you might convert that into degrees. If I have 7 pi over 8 and I multiply by 180 over pi, I can cancel those out. Let's see, if I reduce this down, that would be 4, that would be 90, then I can go to 2 and 45. That's probably about all I can do. And I'm going to grab my calculator. 7 times 45 divided by 2 is 157.5 degrees. All that work just to figure out what quadrant I was in. So 157.5 would be in quadrant 2. Again, quadrant 2. And I know that I'm going to have a sign that is positive. So, very similar to what we had before. Again, I'm going to use my double angle, or my half angle formula, but I have to double that. So if I take 7 pi over 8 times 2, that would cancel, and I'm going to use 7 pi over 4 then. So I'm going to take the sine of 7 pi over 4 divided by 2, which would be your 7 pi over 8. And using my half angle formula, it's going to be positive because I'm in quadrant 2. I'm going to have 1 minus the cosine of 7 pi over 4 over 2 then. And then, of course, our sheet with all our list on has the radian measures. If I look for the cosine of 7 pi over 4, this time I have a positive 2, or positive square root of 2 over 2. So I am going to have the square root of 1 minus square root of 2 over 2 all over 2. Again, when I simplify that, since I want to get rid of this fraction, I'm going to multiply everything times 2. That's probably the quickest and easiest thing for me to do. And so I'm going to have the square root of 2 minus the square root of 2. Those cancel out over 4. And again, since the 4 is a perfect square on the bottom, I can simplify that a little bit more and have the square root of 2 minus the square root of 2 all over my 2. And that's going to be my answer then. The next one says use the half angle formula to find the exact value of the tangent of 157.5. Hey, that was the angle we did before, but this time we're going to do the tangent. So we know we're in quadrant 2. In quadrant 2, we would do the tangent opposite over adjacent, so a positive over a negative, going to give me a negative. Actually, on the tangent, we really don't need to figure that out because we have those 3 different formulas, but it's a good way to double check your answer. You know your answer should end up being negative. Again, I'm going to go ahead and double that. 157.5 times 2. I'm going to do it on my calculator. Is 315 degrees. So we're going to do the tangent of 315 degrees over 2. And then we're going to pick one of our formulas. I decided that I would use the one that was the sine of 315 over 1 plus the cosine of 315. If you remember, you had 3 different formulas you could use for the tangent. That's the one I picked out to use. So I have to look at both the sine of 315 and the cosine of 315. So again, back to my reference sheet. 315, my sine is negative square root of 2 over 2. And then 1 minus my cosine is a positive square root of 2 over 2. And I'm going to simplify that. Again, since I've got those fractions in there, I'm going to get rid of the fractions by multiplying everything times 2. So I can cancel my fractions. I'm going to get negative square root of 2 over 2 minus the square root of 2. Oh, I messed up there. That was supposed to be a plus. I knew something didn't look right. So I should have 2 plus the square root of 2 there. And on this one, there's a negative on top. It doesn't matter if you put it on top, or you could put it out in front if you want to. So you could have negative square root of 2 over 2 plus the square root of 2, and that would be the same answer. I'd probably just leave it on top, but you know how Alex likes to say, you're correct, however, they like the negative out in front, so in best form, probably better to put it out in front.